Hello and welcome to the first ever release of a live episode of Future of XYZ. We're here at NeoCon, which is the contract furniture trade show in Chicago, Illinois, recording live with Cheryl Durst. Cheryl, welcome to the Future of XYZ.
Hey, Lisa, thank you so much. And not intimidated at all by live, are we?
No, not at all. I did have one dry run yesterday, so I'm quite relieved by that. You haven't had that privilege.
No, I haven't.
Cheryl, for people who don't know you, you are the Executive Vice President and CEO of the International Interior Design Association, known as IIDA, which is the trade body. There are two of you, but you're the biggest, managing and overseeing interiors around the world, really.
Around the world, yeah. We're global, for sure.
And you're based here in Chicago.
It is so nice to be at a show that I don't have to sit in seat 7A on anybody's airplane to get to. Yes,
I believe that. And you're also an IF Design Award jury member for a long time, as well as many other accolades that we will speak to over the course of this podcast. But we're speaking today, for obvious reasons, about the future of interiors.
Yeah.
Not a tiny topic.
Not at all.
So we're going to dive in. And my first question, as I always ask, is in the context of your expertise and experience, how do we define interiors?
Quite simply, Lisa, interiors are the places that we inhabit and where we experience life and work and healing and learning. And I want to add that it's not just the places that we inhabit in real time, in real life, the places we inhabit in our imagination as well.
Oh, wow.
Interiors are just as real when they're virtual.
Wow, that's wild. That already opens up a whole bunch of questions. We're here, as we said, at the kind of the last day of NeoCon, which is already the end or tail end of a flurry of interior shows that started in Milan, right, in Salone, then went ICFF in New York City, Copenhagen's this week, and then we were just talking about AIA, where we had 2 weeks ago, our last episode was actually with the CEO, your counterpart at AIA. What is the state of interiors today based on what you're seeing?
I think the state of interiors is strong. I think that there are a lot of blurry lines, and I'm not saying that as a negative. I think once upon a time we could define the disciplines, or if you're on the product side, the vertical markets within interiors. But, when we say hospitality now, that encompasses an entire range of places and products and people, healthcare as well, education, right? And so the lines between the disciplines, I think for all the right reasons, it's the passage of time, it's evolution. When you think about residential, for example, and what happens in that place we define as home, homes have become places not just where we reside, but where we learn, where we heal. I think about as we age, how our homes support us in a number of different ways. We work in our homes. And so hospitals have become more community centers. Libraries are community centers. And so I think it is causing designers and product manufacturers, by extension, to be more thoughtful about those things that we place in those places. And so, the need for trade shows, they are as much about the communities that traffic them and travel to them as the product that is on display as well.
It's so imperative to have that community, especially in a design field, I feel like, where people are riffing off of each other's ideas. And as you just said, interiors is kind of all-encompassing.
Yeah. And the blur is interesting, right? I think the blur has become an interesting challenge, but when one discipline is informing another, I think about, the area of aviation and airports, or sports with stadiums, right? That is, a sport, it's not just a sports facility. It is hospitality as well. And then how do we think about those places in the context of wellness, right? Everyone experiences sports very differently. And so, being neuroaesthetically sensitive to how we perceive and live through certain experiences. Again, designers have acquired that expertise about thinking about human behavior in those places.
And which is becoming more and more relevant. I mean, we talked about it actually in all of my conversations, because I'm on this like tear at the moment. It feels like of like interiors and architecture and the built environment,
Mm-hmm.
and this neuroaesthetics piece, and like what we know about how our spaces impact our emotionality, if you will, is really our state of mind. Let's
Yeah.
call it that way. Our sense of security is really amazing. You're interesting because you studied journalism at Boston University
Yeah.
at BU. You're also the first, I believe, Black woman and maybe Black person to lead in an international design organization.
Correct. That is correct.
Which gives you a unique perspective on community, I think, and the diversity and inclusion piece of. We're talking about neurodiversity here, but actually we're also talking about cultural diversity.
Cultural diversity, for sure.
And
yeah.
it's an international industry.
Mm-hmm.
At IIDA, as we said at the start, you guys are an international organization, and you run multiple awards, and you have lots of chapters, and you do educational programs, and a lot of similar parallel paths to IF Design. Talk about what practically community means in the interior space today, and how has the IIDA mission shifted over the course of your pretty long, almost 30-year tenure there?
That's such a great question, and I can parse that in a number of ways, I think. But this sense of belonging, we all know what it's like to walk into a place. You immediately, in some instances, feel an attachment, feel an affinity to that place. Regardless of whether there are people in that place or not, but we also know what it feels like to not belong. That sense of, agitation or discomfort. I think design plays such an incredibly immense role in belonging. And, I'm taking it out of the context of equity, diversity, and inclusion, which are three very important things to me personally as a Black woman. But I also think creating equitable space so that all people have a sense of comfort, safety, and belonging in place. That has just been my mantra as a human, but certainly my mantra as the CEO of IIDA. And I know walking in as CEO of this organization where less than 2% of the members look like me, less than 4% in the industry globally are people of color. And so IIDA has certainly looked at this from a longitudinal aspect. And so we've introduced programs like Design Your World, where we are introducing the viability of design as a career to Black and brown students.
Interesting.
And that's a long game.
Yeah, for sure.
And but we're investing in that and looking toward the future of this profession. I've always said you can't design for the world if you're not of the world. And, so increasing the diversity, both gender and race and ethnicity, but also diversity of thought. Designers come to design from so many different paths, and we see design as one of the most popular second career professions. Mm-hmm. And so I met here during the week a woman who was a pediatric nurse and actually in pediatric oncology. And she's burnt out. And growing up, she always wanted to be a designer. Her mother was a nurse. Her parents encouraged her down a medical pathway, but she is over 40 now and kind of doing what she wants to do, and she's pursuing a career in design. But what she is bringing to her design career, having been a practicing nurse, what she is bringing to healthcare design will be absolutely incredible.
I love that as an example, and I've noticed the same thing, but I haven't thought about it quite as clearly as you've just stated it, and it's important. I think one of the things that is on everyone's mind right now is the role of technology. And obviously in your official role leading IIDA, but in addition, you're actively involved in kind of the connection of this interior design professionals, whether manufacturers, whether designers, whether end users, employees, the whole caboodle to promote this understanding. What is the role of technology as we're kind of moving 2026 and beyond in the future of interiors?
Technology is an incredible tool. for design, both on the product manufacturing side and on the interiors, on the designer side, as a practical tool that designers have at their fingertips. It allows more efficiency. It allows designers to be more effective. If we're thinking in terms of AI, right, within the course of work in design, AI can assume some of the administrative tasks, some of the bureaucracy that takes away from creativity. I tend to be a champion of not being fearful of AI. I think, though, that it will force us, and using force in a positive way, I think it will force us to reclaim some of our humanity and be in thinking about how can we maintain human dignity and humanity within the use of AI. It will require designers to become editors, or at least their editing acumen, using discernment and judgment. AI can iterate, 1,000 times a million. You are now having clients come to you with iterations of what they think their spaces should look like. And in those instances, that's when designers need to have a teachable moment sometimes with those clients.
I'm loving the word discernment seems to be coming up over and over and over again as relates to technology and AI.
Absolutely.
And that's, as you said, it's a teaching moment when your clients come to you, but it's also something we as an industry need to teach.
Yeah. Yeah. And it goes back, Lisa, to that core common skill for designers, critical thinking, right? And we need to think critically about the tools and the technology, but also helping our stakeholders, our clients, to think critically what design means to their organizations, to their brand, and to the humans that will inhabit those spaces that we are creating.
It's absolutely that. I want to pivot for a quick second.
Sure.
You've been an IF Design Award. IF Design, obviously, is the host of the IF Design Award, the largest independent design award in the world. IF Design is the presenting partner of A Future of XYZ. You've been a juror in interior architecture now for 3 years.
Yes.
What over the course of those 3 years has kind of inspired you the most, and also at IF, but also your other work, that you're seeing a progression in the industry?
Lisa, I've really enjoyed being on the interior architecture jury team. I've seen some incredible spaces, but the proliferation of spaces that celebrate culture, so museums, from the large to the small, museums that celebrate whether it's a tiny village, a fishing village in China that no one has ever heard of, with a visitor center, and it's like, first of all, I need to figure out how to get there, to some of these large-scale exhibitions. I think this renewed focus that tells stories about humanity. And I think those are affirming to the people who belong to those cultures, but then inviting others to understand culture as well. And so whether it's a library or whether it's a museum or whether it's an opera house, the submissions that focus on culture have been the most fascinating and revelatory for me. There's also this thin silver line of pride that runs through those submissions in the written word and in the visuals. And so this celebration of humanity in the midst of looking at all of these incredible structures, incredible architecture, incredible interiors, the people piece, I love to see that celebrated.
It's great. It gives me like smiles everywhere, as anyone watching this will see. But I also am curious, because IF is so global and IIDA is also so global. Are there differences from the interiors perspective about how things are moving, either geographically or culturally? I
don't think so. I mean, in some places you'll see an emphasis on color, or you will see an emphasis on decoration or augmentation, right? Some countries move in a more modern, clean, simple way. We see this in our own competitions at IIDA, and other cultures, are just a profusion of so many beautiful things. But I am not seeing vast swings between this is only happening in Turkey and this is only happening in Argentina. because it seems worldwide the celebration of people and the thoughtfulness about people inhabit this place, that seems to be prevalent regardless of geography.
It's kind of a convergence towards our shared humanity.
Yeah, I will say we're all at different places in our sustainability journey,
For sure.
right? So there you might see some marked differences in how firms are approaching sustainability. But that is really that's the only area where I'm really seeing some large swings of difference.
I want to come back to sustainability because, as you well know, that's a huge
Yes.
impact area for me.
Yes.
But speaking about impact, you speak quite publicly about the impact of culture, brand, and place. We've talked a lot about culture and place here, but the brand, exploring that value of design as social, cultural, economic. As a force, and as we think about the future of interiors, what is the intersection of these considerations for you? And do you think that there's a good business case for integrating and elevating them together more?
I think there is a fantastic business case for integrating, and one of the areas that I often talk about is joy and optimism. And we're in a moment now, both here in the U.S. and worldwide, where consumer confidence is at a low, and there are all kinds of reasons, right, that we can attribute that to. But just consumer confidence is required for the stock market. Consumer confidence is an economic engine, and underlying that is that as human beings we need to feel safety, comfort, and security. And safety, comfort, and security are good business. Yeah. And whether I am a grocery store chain or whether I am a design firm, my ability to talk about human comfort and safety is powerful. We don't talk about psychological safety enough. We also, though, we talk about data security and safety. We talk about physical safety, but emotional safety, ecological safety, all of those factor into that conversation around safety and comfort, and that is an economic engine. And it's a subtle line, and it's very nuanced, but it is an incredibly powerful economic engine.
I'm blown away because I saw something on Instagram this morning that was actually about like how cities aren't designed necessarily for women. And I sent it to Karen Reuter, who you know is one of our fellow jurors, your fellow jurors, I should say, jury chairperson, a friend of mine, and was on the podcast a couple weeks ago because she has this book coming out, Manpower, and about how the world, especially the built world, but the world is built largely by and for men, historically speaking. And that sense of psychological and physical safety being good business, to me, is actually very telling about how do we, coming back to the inclusivity, of all things, because when you are safe and women have a lot of buying power, not to mention other things, but this actually benefits everyone. So when you're talking brand, culture, and place, that convergence is really important.
And as a gender conversation, you're talking about the buying power of women. Women aren't just concerned with their personal safety. If they're a head of a household, they're concerned about family safety as well, household safety. And so when you talk about safety to a group of women, it often has larger consequences.
Yeah, and when you think that plays into the conversation around sustainability and security and durability and things that might not necessarily otherwise be thought about.
And resilience.
And always resilience. Always resilience. As I mentioned, the episode as we're recording this that will be released this week, so the episode right before this episode is released, is with your counterpart at AIA, Carol Wedge, talking about the future of architects. As trade bodies, do you feel you face similar or dissimilar challenges?
I think there are very similar challenges. Architects and interior designers obviously work very closely together. The best design results when you don't know where one ends and the other begins, right? We love to use the word seamless when we talk about those relationships. But certainly there are a lot of folks out in the world who purport to be design experts. That is a challenge for our industry. The viability of architecture as a career and interior design as a career, they are, I know in terms of interior design, that's not the first career choice for a lot of folks. That's part of the reason for our Design Your World course, is talking to people about the viability of a career in design. more and more students are choosing to move into business or other forms, not seeing architecture and design as viable careers, useful careers. And so we are continually needing to have that conversation that the world needs you. The world needs your thinking. The world needs your left brain and your right brain. The world needs your heart and soul. Life happens in spaces that are created by designers. And and design is about what happens on the receiving end. And if no one is being thoughtful about the receiving end, the world will rapidly devolve into complexity and chaos. So I am absolutely saying the world needs interior design and architecture.
I couldn't agree more, as you well know. The shared mission. I think it's interesting as a separation in both cases for the profession, for the business, for the practice, as a leader, especially in terms of the industry's evolution, as we talk about impact areas. Is it are these technical professions?
Ooh, that's a great question. Technical versus creative?
I think there's this conversation, at least in the U.S., right, of especially architects recently, calling it out nurses, that these are professional, degrees rather than, or vice versa. And I think there's something really interesting about this. We need you in the world because everything is designed. And yet there's this kind of like reluctance, I would say, in certain bodies to. So is it technical? Is it?
It is, and it's interesting. That's such an intriguing proposition. But so is being an educator, is being technical, right? Because technology and the use of these tools is so pervasive in any profession, I would almost argue that we are moving or have moved into a realm where, yes, professions are technical and necessary, and creative and technical and necessary. There's almost like a third leg now on that stool that we all need to be apt technicians in what we do.
And it comes back to the technology conversation that we started with, right? With if you don't have critical thinking and discernment,
that's right,
and then a technical understanding of the tools and the possibilities, it's hard.
Yeah, there is a judiciousness, I think, that's required because technology could be defined as cold and not necessarily observant of the human soul, which is why we retain design to preserve the humanity and dignity, in the created world.
I love that. So again, a little bit of a pivot. I have to say that you're recognized in the field for lots of things, but you're recognized by Interior Design Magazine as an ambassador for innovation and expansion and a visionary strategist. But perhaps more excitingly, in a couple of weeks, the week that this is coming out, on Juneteenth, which is a federal holiday in the United States, marking ostensibly the end of slavery, but it's for our international listeners. I'm not going to get into that right now.
That's a whole other conversation.
But it is a federal holiday that recognizes the celebration and celebrates Blackness, I think, in many ways. And the presidential library of our former president, Barack Obama, is going to be opened in this city of Chicago on that date, which is all very exciting. You are also within the museum that is there, the Contemporary Art Museum, part of an exhibition that's recognizing you. I believe it's for impact on the impact you've had in inclusivity and changing the profession of design.
Yes. So there is an exhibition in the Obama Presidential Center that is called Imagine Your Impact. And Mr. and Mrs. Obama are firm believers in grassroots activism. And as they state, the extraordinary power of ordinary people to impact and affect change. And so the museum is not necessarily a monument to him, but really is testament to activism and the power of people, which they both recognized during his tenure as president. And I am part of an exhibit of really ordinary folks out here doing our thing to affect change in our industries. And so the exhibit that I'm a part of is really talking about inclusivity in a profession. And so obviously my area was design. And it really is just a meaningful moment. And what I appreciate about the museum is that it then asks you, what is your part, and are you interested in this organization, and how can you support Cheryl and IIDA in moving design forward and exposing it to new communities?
Oh,
so it's
cool.
not just that people are receiving the information, they are asked to be a verb themselves. What will you do to impact design? Yeah.
That's cool. And I mean, I want to move on from this, but I also want to pause because when we were just getting prep for this and you were sharing with me the museum's outline, again, space. So there's architecture, there's place, and then there's the interiors side. Right. Just very briefly, what's your impression of the interiors of the new presidential library?
The new presidential library, and it actually is the first presidential museum to have a public library. And so Barack Obama is the first president to have a completely digitized archive. And so he was then able to use physical space to do a public library on the south side of Chicago. So that in and of itself is incredible.
Amazing.
The art that is captured in the museum, and so, come for the art, stay for the activism. The art is incredible. There are over 30 artists represented, from Nick Cave to Theaster Gates to Carrie Mae Weems. It's an incredible collection of art that is moving and awe-inspiring. And then it is a celebration of words. Barack Obama is the consummate orator. And so the lexicon of his speeches and just the words he uses. So it's a celebration for all who love books and words and art and music, the lower level and culture. Yeah, it is an explosion of culture. Michelle Obama has a garden it's 20 acres. The museum, the campus is 20 acres. And
on the south side of Chicago,
on
which
the south side
historically, underprivileged, I hate that word, but under-resourced.
Although the University of Chicago is in Hyde Park, it is the most diverse part of Chicago, but it is going to open Chicago, that part of Chicago, to an entirely new audience, which I think is fantastic.
It's so great, which of course is the role of interiors and space in general.
That is absolutely. It is all about access.
So we're going to do our quick round because we, of course, can't get to everything that we want to. So the quick round allows us to at least touch on some of the topics. Okay. So I'm giving you a few words.
Okay.
About each topic in the context of future of interiors.
Okay.
You ready?
I think so.
Globalization.
Pervasive, necessary, required. I gave you 3 words back.
I love it. Craft.
Oh, heart and soul.
Huh.
Craft makes us human. Craft is tangible, it's hands-on, and it is required to tell us who we are and to tell others who we are.
Supply chain concerns.
Valid.
Training for the next generation.
Necessary. And formally and informally, and training for the next generation for me means mentoring. We all have to step up our game around mentoring.
I love that. It's true. Materiality.
Again, like craft, necessary. Materiality, tangibility, having something in our hand that's not a phone, not a smooth pane of glass. It is materiality is a reminder of craft. It is a reminder of heritage, and materiality makes us human.
I love that. Hospitality as a trend.
Ooh. Hospitality. So if people were watching, they would have seen me make the ooh face. Hospitality is so not a trend. Hospitality, again, is necessary to all of the spaces that we inhabit. Sense of welcome and being a good host.
It's a sidebar, but I hosted the then CEO of Six Senses Hotel Group on the podcast last year and the future hospitality, and what he said about it not being a trend in all sorts of ways was really interesting. And I actually quoted it on stage when I spoke yesterday for Design Milk. So I agree with you.
Yeah.
And
Ooh,
it was
you got me with that one.
I know. I saw the provocation. Yeah. Sorry for that.
Yeah. I loved it though. But it is not a trend. It's a sensibility.
I love that. It's not a trend. It's a sensibility. Okay. Couple more. Interconnected ecosystems.
Interconnected ecosystems, for me, starts to feel like a network, connecting the human world to the natural world, being conscious that the ecosystem is not separate from us. We require it, and it requires us.
And in the context of products specifically, where we talk about, like, I don't know, like lighting plus blinds plus an audio plus.
And I went straight to nature, but in terms of design, and I love the example that you use, lighting. It's not a separate thing, right? It is all part. If you were talking about a comprehensive and cohesive interior environment, things like lighting, not an afterthought, right?
Yeah, the foundation, really, in many ways. Yeah. Okay, we have 3 more. Future of workplace.
Talking about future of workplace feels like it's been a trend. It is an ongoing conversation since before the pandemic. The workplace, while it may not, some people would say it may not be alive and well, it's different, it's shifting, it's evolutionary. Work happens everywhere, and we need to do a better job of acknowledging that and creating environments that allow work to happen and teams to meet, or solo work to happen a lot easily. That means connectivity. That means give me those outlets in my hotel room so that I can get work done. I could go on and on about this when I get agitated about it.
Totally.
But, I get tired of all of the articles that the workplace is dead, because it is not.
Definitively
how we
not.
worked 20 years ago, that is dead.
Yeah.
But how we will work moving forward is very much an alive conversation, and is so tied to human behavior.
Yeah, it's economics too. I mean, at the end. Okay, last 2. Human-machine interaction in the context of the future of interiors.
It will need to be flawless and seamless. The technology that we surround ourselves should not make us feel like we're losing IQ points. It should not make us feel, awkward. Human-machine interaction will be a necessary interaction. And just as we nurture human relationships, we're going to have to nurture our machine relationships as well.
Fascinating. Okay. Anything that I haven't asked you about before we get to the last question?
Ooh, I think those covered it.
So I get to the last question. In conclusion, I ask every guest, we have first question and last question, only guarantees. What's your greatest hope for the future of interiors as we think about 25-ish years out? So that puts us in about 2050.
Not that long from now. I hope that in 25 years that we will all have the dignity of place. I think we recognize the power of place, but the dignity of place and the places where work happens, the places where learning happens, the places where healing happens are open, they're accessible, they're readily available, they're well understood, and also in the context of well understood, that the profession of interior design is seen as essential and necessary and not as an added-on luxury.
With that, Cheryl Durst, EVP, CEO of the International Interior Design Association, IIDA, thank you so much for joining us live on Future of XYZ at NeoCon.
All right. Thank you so much, Lisa. It was really fun. Nerve-wracking, but fun.
So you're great at this. You got this all day. For everyone who is watching, this has been a really fun experience working with the GoPro 360. And special shout out to the Surround Podcast Network producer, Rob Schultz, who's sitting in the corner. For everyone listening, you should check it out on YouTube. But we're happy to have you. Leave a 5-star review so others can find us. And we'll see you again in 2 weeks' time for the episode with Brad Ascalon on the future of not fast furniture, which is also being recorded live at NeoCon. Thank you, and we will talk to you soon.
Bye.